This program is brought to you by UCKG.
The nice thing about this was that he was able to forgive his father because of what he did.
After all, no?
Yeah, exactly. Good evening, everyone. We are just preparing for tonight's program. We are going to be looking back at a past real-life story, one of our actual TV presenters on Finding Answers. Tonight's topic is called Forgiving Your Father. And you know, when fathers are not present in a family, there are a whole host of problems, right, Pastor Carlos?
Yeah, after, all the situation, the suffering that, our guest, he went through, then finally he was able, through faith, to forgive.
So if you're going through any sort of problem with your family, particularly your father, that absentee father, stay with us, because right now it's time for Finding Answers. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Finding Answers. Tonight's topic is about fathers. You know, the absentee father, the father who neglects his family, who's always out of the house, who doesn't provide for the children or indeed his wife. That's tonight's topic, and not just about the absentee father, but the effects on the child. And my guest this evening is actually Pastor Rayma. We're going to be looking back at a previous program of Pastor Rayma's story where his father, he did some, very terrible things, neglecting the needs of his children and of course the effects that it had on himself and his brother. If you are going through anything similar, maybe you have a father who is absent from the house. He's not there. Not just a father, but a parent, a mother. And, you are abusing yourself in some way, right? Because of that hurt and that pain that you hold inside of you, now you are on a course, a path of destruction. You are hurting yourself. You can't forgive your father for what he has done. We are here to help you find, peace and to heal those wounds. And it is all possible through faith. Before we talk more about this subject, let's have a look at a real life testimony of someone who through faith was able to find their answer.
After I left school, I always knew that I wanted to go to university to get my degree. But it seemed like everything that I was doing to try and complete my degree, it seemed like everything was going wrong. My life felt like it was upside down. There were so many problems coming from left, right and center. I had a child to take care of. Then when all the problems of taking care of my son, being a single parent came along, it seemed impossible for me to achieve that dream that I always wanted. After I found my faith in God, then I started to put everything that I had learned into practice. And once I had done that, then I was able to use all those tools for me to achieve my dream that seemed so impossible for me to achieve. Now I'm a graduate and reaching for my dreams.
Welcome back to Finding Answers. Pastor Carlos, forgiving your father. Lots of people, including myself, we didn't have a father figure around. And of course, that led to a lot of problems, especially my life as well. I don't know if you grew up with both mother and father?
Yes, I did grow up with both parents, but obviously there were some issues there as well, which I even reached to the point of nearly having some sort of grudges. Not really a grudge, but there were some issues there.
Against your father?
Against my father,
right.
Yes.
And normally, not normally, but what happens now, we can look back and we can understand now that we're in a better position that parents don't want to treat their children or their spouse in the way that they did or they do now. We can look back and see, you know what, actually my father or my mother, they're going through their own issues. The thing is, we don't see it at the time. And of course, it has a big effect on the family as a whole.
Yes, especially, you know, as a child, very young age, obviously I could not understand the things that I do understand today. So, in fact, due to, you know, seeing my father very absent, I would always blame him, especially because I would compare, as a child, I remember very well, I would compare, you know, my family, the relationship that I had with my father to the relationship that I used to see my friend having with his father, because I could see in a way that my friend's father was much closer, was always there, was always taking them out, you know, having fun with them, but my father was not that kind of father.
And that's
Yes.
the kind of effect that, you know, an absentee father or a neglectful father or an abusive father can have on children. The child starts to look elsewhere in search of, you know, what they should actually receive at home themselves.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's the head of a child, right? The mind, I mean, the mind of a child, because the child, what does the child expect? Expects, you know, to have the love of his or her parents and so on, to make, to expect to have his father, no? Their father there, the parents very close to them. But when this doesn't help, they cannot help. I mean, they start comparing to, you know, other friends as well.
And, you know, in my case, I didn't have a father growing up. I mean, my father was actually married, and my mum was actually the other woman, though she didn't know she was the other woman because he pretended he was single. Of course, I was the result of that kind of affair, my mum thinking that, no, we're going to be together, until it's found out he had a wife and children. And so I didn't know my father. And growing up, we came to the UK, my mum met someone else and got married. I found out, I called him Dad. But then he cheated on my mum as well. And so he left. And so I grew up from about 6, 7 years old without a father. And that had a big effect on me, because now I try to look for father figures in, you know, older people. If I had a group of friends where I lived, I would look for the oldest one and try to follow him. If it was at school or college, I always used to look up to that person. But the thing is, I should have looked for that role model in my father. My father should have actually taught me things a father should teach their son. But I had to find out certain things in other ways. And most of them were actually negative. And maybe this is your case as well. Looking back, you may say to yourself, how can I forgive my father? He was never around. He mistreated my mother. You know what? Maybe your father's even passed away. As both my father and my dad, they are passed away now. But I had no grudges against them. But maybe you do. You have an ill feeling, a grudge against your father. Can faith really help you? Of course it can. We want to help you to heal the wounds and try to make amends, although it may not be your fault, right? But to bring the peace back in your family. If you would like to contact us in any way, the email address, actually you can give us a call first of all. Our number's on the screen. It's 0207 686 6300. 0207 686 6300. You can email us at help@findinganswerstv if you have a question or anything related to tonight's program or anything else, then we will endeavor to answer your email. You can also tweet us at @FindAnswersTV, and you can search for us on Facebook, you can search for us on YouTube and catch up with past programs. You just search for Finding Answers TV. Okay, we're going to go for a break now. When we come back, we will have a look at Raymar Legister's story of forgiving his father. We'll see you right after this break.
Pushing me for the rest of the week, so it's like a boost.
Things were really tight.
Today, the way I see myself is completely different.
Introduce you to our guest for this evening, our recorded guest for this evening. His name, as you all know, is Pastor Raymar Legister. Yes, we have our very own Finding Answers presenter, Pastor Raymar. Good evening, Pastor Raymar.
Good evening, Pastor.
How are you doing?
Very good.
Now, you have a story to tell regarding your own father, right?
For sure.
And it all started in your home country of Jamaica.
Yeah.
Please tell us about your background and growing up with your family.
So, well, I didn't know my father when I was growing up. I remember I saw him when I was quite small. I don't remember exactly the age, but I remember I wasn't going to any school yet. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I actually saw him. And then it was years after, when I was going to high school, that I actually met him again.
Right. So your mother and your father weren't actually together?
They were not together.
Okay.
When I didn't know, I was not there by the time I grew up. And then it was like that. So it was just my mom. You know, my mom, I used to call my mom my mommy and daddy. She was my mother and my father. She was there for all of us.
Mm-hmm. And how many siblings were there?
So actually I have 8, 4 brothers, 4 sisters.
Wow, that's a big family.
Yeah.
And only your mom to look after all of you?
Not really, because actually she has 7 children with my father.
Right.
I'm the last.
Okay.
So by the time I grew up, it was mainly like 6 of us. Because 5 of us actually, because 4 of them 2 was with my father. Mm-hmm. Another 2 was with relatives, the other father as well.
So in Jamaica, must have been very hard for you. Did you grow up in like a village, a town,
ghetto.
or in the ghetto?
For sure.
So it was tough.
It was really hard. My mother had to work, sell, do whatever she could do to send us, to take care of us.
Right.
The living condition was not good. Mm-hmm. The house was not a good quality. And from time to time, we have to go through things like that.
Right.
But she would always try her best to make sure that we go to school, that, you know, she take care of us. She gave her best.
Yeah.
And
as you said, she had to play mum, and she had to play father as well.
Of course.
You know, the discipline side of things, as well as the mother.
Exactly, and that discipline part is even more because, you know, in the ghetto is a fight. Right. A lot of influence, you know, to keep us and boy children, because me and my brother, the last 2, and to hold us, to keep us in the right way. It was not easy. It was a big fight.
So tell us about the things that were going on in the ghetto in Jamaica. You know, when you don't have a father figure to kind of steer you in the right direction, there are going to be role models out there.
For sure.
So what were the type of things that were going on in the ghetto?
Oh, just the lifestyle alone. You have to prove yourself. And for them, a man is the one who fight, who have children, who do drugs, who, you know, a rude boy life. That kind of lifestyle is something that people look up to. Mm-hmm. And then our mother would try to get us education, would try to tell us in another way. And it was like she was going against the tide. She was going against everything that we know, that we see that is common. So it was not easy. Yeah. It was like she was going against. She was not popular because, you know, you're going against a lifestyle. Right. And for sure, you're not going to find much
So there's this pull on one side, trying to listen to your mum, who you love. But then on the other side, there's the guys on the street.
Exactly.
Right? They're probably walking around, you know, saying, I have many girls, and things like that.
We were quite young, friends and influence and a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just to be different. Yeah. Because once you live, when you are among people and you are different, you are not going to be, especially try to go against. You're not going to be popular, you're not going to be common, you're not going to be like people are going to look up to you and say, wow, that person is trying. They're going to try to ridicule you, they're going to try to put you down, they're going to try to make you feel as if, you know, you are the odd one out. Yes. And many times you would face that, and we also would face that.
So tell us about what happened for you to have this animosity or anger, this resentment towards your father.
So this happened when, after some years, I was going to school, and then there was a disaster that took place with my mom. She had to move from where she was. Like I said, you're not going to be popular. I'm not going to go into much details of what happened to her, but she had to move. And then we ended up living with our father. Not really directly. We did. We had a house, and then we ended up sharing. We had a room at the back that my brother was already living with him, was staying. And then we ended up staying there because where my mom was staying was not very convenient at that time. She had to move, quickly, and there was no facility, there was no condition. I was still going to school. So we used to stay basically with our father just so that we can have facility. There was no water there. Could be able to go to school. It was also closer comparing because we used to walk to school before, and then now we had to take like 3 transportation to go to school. And if I stay with my mom, it would be 4. So we used to stay there most of the time,
Right.
just to have the facility. But after some months, about 2-3 months, is like, I think it was a thing that he didn't really have us, take care of us. And then all of a sudden, we are there. Then for me, because he was also an elder, and he passed away now anyway, but was elder, and then it was like a shock. And then of course people would see, oh, this is Mr. Legis's children, and who are these ones? Because we were quite younger. He had many older children, and we were quite younger. So I think it was like a shock for him, and then he would start to, to be on top of us.
So did he have someone else, another woman in the house?
Yeah,
well?
actually he was married with his wife.
Right.
So he was married with his wife, and then we were at the back, was a room at the back that we used to share.
So would his wife kind of help to take care of you and your brothers?
No, not really. We're not really depending on him for anything.
Okay.
We used to provide. The only thing we used to depend on was to let us stay, because by then most of my brothers and sisters, we used to work, we just try to do things. Our mother teach us to do things, so we're not dependent for food. We used to help sometimes if necessary to even pay the bills, clothes we used to provide for ourselves.
But still, he was that absentee father, though he was there. But yet you were away from your mum, so,
Yeah,
there was that resentment, there was that anger, wasn't there?
Because why? I couldn't understand why he was treating us like that. And sometimes there was a time when I used to think to myself, maybe I'm the problem, because my mother is in a critical situation. She do everything that she can do, and now she cannot do anything more.
Yeah.
And then the little that he could do, he was not willing just to allow us.
Yeah.
And I used to find myself sometimes, even though many times my mom used to tell us, even before we actually met him and have to live with him, okay, he's your father already. If you have to help him, then you are going to help him. So she was not that person that instilled in us that kind of hatred or that kind of anger. But when you're in a situation that you don't know what else to do,
Yeah.
it was my final year of school, and my grades started to become bad. I started to fail, and I didn't see any way out. I was angry, I was upset. I didn't know what else to do. It was really frustrating.
Pastor Bruno, we hear stories like this a lot, where we have children like Rayma who they blame themselves because of what's happened. If the parents are separated, then they blame themselves, right? And normally it's because the parents just don't get along. They don't communicate with the child. And then the child starts saying, I'm the cause of this breakup. And then the child goes through all these issues, failing in school and things like that, right?
Yes, this is a very, important issue, because if a person keeps feeling like I'm the cause of the problem, and if this is not addressed at the early stage,
Yes.
it can lead the person even to be suicidal,
Yeah.
to be depressed. So something has to be done. And if there are people now watching us and going through this, I would say call us, talk to someone, don't keep it to yourself, because if a person is going through this and is keeping to himself, will only make matters worse.
And maybe they're not a child. It could be children, teens watching, but we have adults. They've had their own family, right? And they still have this anger. Maybe you've got your own children, you are in a relationship, you are married, but you're not as close to your parents, and they are, they're old now, and you still don't have that relationship, right?
But, Pastor Michael, there are many adults out there. They don't like to admit it, but it's true. There are many adults out there that the body is the body of an adult. They have responsibilities. They are parents, but inside they're still that child, lost child, looking for the love of the father, the approval of the father, of the mother. We have many out there, but you know, they need to reach out, they need to seek help.
Yeah. You know, it's true, because even though, for example, like I said, we're not depending on him for things really. And he didn't have much also that he could give us, but it's just that fact, just that, like you said, that appreciation, that, okay, this is my father. And it's what many people are lacking.
Yeah.
And like Pastor Bruno said, I used to cry a lot. I used to go behind the house and cry. My sister would find me, what happened? And I wouldn't say anything to anybody. But of course, if you see someone crying, you know that something is wrong.
You know, in England, they call it the stiff upper lip, right? You have to keep your cool and keep on going. You know, in Jamaica, it's probably the pride. A man is not allowed to cry. You shouldn't cry. You need to
No, I would
hide
cry.
your problems.
I would hide behind the house and I would cry.
Yeah.
I remember my guidance counselor came one day because I was finishing high school. It was my last year of high school. And I didn't want to do the exam. I just wanted to, you know, like pass. I wanted to disappear. There were times I didn't think about or try to commit suicide, but
the thoughts came to your mind.
My wish was to just disappear.
Yeah.
I want to just leave this place, leave everything.
And I'm sure it didn't happen to you. I'm sure your siblings had these thoughts as well.
For sure, they must have suffered as well, because especially my brother I think it was even worse for him. Because while my father used to, you know, on top of his voice and shout, he used to literally tell him he cannot stay inside of the house. 5 o'clock in the morning would come down, push the door to make sure that he's not sleeping there.
Really?
And my brother had to go away and stay with friends, you know, far away. So it was really, I imagine how it was for him.
Rema, you know, what you're describing to us, I know it was bad for you at the time, but there are worse situations that people are going through. They suffer abuse, maybe sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect. And maybe you're going through this and you don't know what to do. You're telling yourself, it's impossible to forgive my father. It's impossible to forgive the one who hurt me. Well, we're here to say that it is possible. With faith and with God, it is possible to forgive the one who has hurt you. Whether they are still alive or even if they passed away, it is possible. You have to free yourself from this. And after the break, please stay with us, because you're going to hear how Pastor Raymar was able to forgive his father and move on. And you're going to find out how his life is today. If you want our help, then stay with us. We'll see you right after this break. You just saw the first part of Pastor Raymar Legister's story of his father being absent. And Pastor Carlos, you see once again the effect that an absentee father, a neglectful father, you know, had a big impact on the family. Not just, you know, him running the children out of the house and having to stay with a relative, but it had an effect on his mum as well.
Because he's the leader, right? And obviously that's the whole family expects the leadership of the man, of the father in this case. And definitely in regards to a male child, the effect is going to be even, you know, it's going to be, the impact will be even greater, because obviously that's the male child. Is normally, in most cases, is closer to the father.
Exactly. And you know, maybe you're in a similar situation, right? I know that your parent who's there, whether it's your mother, she's trying her best to be both mother and father, trying her best. But of course, as a male child, you know, you need someone stronger than your mother, right? You know, mothers normally say, go and ask your father, right? When the son wants something, the child wants something. So the father is there as a role model for his child. And Raymar didn't have that. His brother did not have that. You can see that he explained about the grudge he had, the anger that he had towards his father. And if you are having this feeling, this grudgeful feeling, you can't forgive your father for what he's done. I'm going to jump on this point again. Remember, your family, the way that your father, mother, whoever it is was brought up, had a big impact on how they behave now. How they are behaving towards you, how they react to certain things. Maybe they haven't got over their issues. Remember, them growing up, there wasn't counselors. There wasn't, the self-help groups and books, and, they didn't have the internet to go and read up on stuff and be diagnosed with certain issues and problems. Whereas today we have that information now. So please be understanding and stay with us, because after the break, you're going to hear how Raymar, through faith, was able to change the situation, the entire situation in his family. See you after this break. Welcome back to Finding Answers. Just before the break, we listened to the first part of Pastor Raymar's story of forgiving his father. Now, let's have a look at how faith helped him to bring everything together. Now, let's go back to Pastor Raymar's story. So, Pastor Raymar, you told us about how your father, there was kind of neglect. You suffered along with your siblings, but you found help, didn't you?
For sure.
No matter how hard or difficult people may be going through problems now, there is hope, isn't it?
For sure, there's a way out. I remember when my mom was the one who started attending the church. And then she would say, come. But in that time, I would say, look, church is not going to help me. Mm-hmm. I need to go, I need to sort out my education, I need to help myself, I need to, I was thinking that I need to do something, something for myself. I didn't see how going to church. In my mind, I was thinking, well, I know what church is about already. They're going to go there, they're going to tell you to sing, they're going to tell you to this kind of thing.
And is that the idea of church in Jamaica?
Yeah, it's a lot
it's
of
happy clappy, singing.
Sing, and some churches you have to dress, you have to put clothes, and you have to do this. And
how's that going to help you?
Exactly. My mind is not there for that. I want solution. I want something that's going to help me. I need to come out of this situation. I need my life to move forward.
Yes.
And then she would, sometimes bring the paper with testimonies, like we just heard, testimonies of people that managed to overcome. And I would read it. But even though I would read it, I would still question how this is going to help me.
How old were you at the time?
That time I was what? Maybe 16, 17. Mm-hmm. And how that is going to help me. Until it kept on going on for a while, then by the end of the year, I said, okay, let me give it a try.
So did you actually see changes in your mum during this time?
Because I remember she started attending one church before things happened to her, and then she had to move. And then from that church, she was not able to go back because it was quite far. Then someone introduced her to this church, and then she started coming, of course. And we started to see some changes in her because, of course, we know her, grew up with her, the way that she was, the way that she used to be. And then I started to see gradually changes. I noticed that she was more calm, she was more, was more peaceful, was more, was not cursing like before, was not as aggressive. I think it was different. But the testimony that I used to see, I used to think about it sometimes, but at the same time I was dismiss it.
So what made you actually go along to, the place where your mum was going? What happened?
Well, she invited me quite a few times, and then I remember it was at the end of the year. I did my exams. I didn't want to do it actually because I wasn't in a state of mind to do it. I actually asked them to let me repeat, go to school another year and do the exam, but the money was going to go to waste anyway. So I had to do it. And then by the end of the year, I'm thinking, what's coming of my life? Mm-hmm. What am I going to do? If I fail this exam, I don't have father to help me. My mother cannot help. I don't have family to help. And in truth and in fact, my education was what I was depending on.
Right.
Was what I was going to school for. I was working hard. I saw that as my only way out.
Well, your idea was to do well in school so you can maybe do well outside.
Exactly.
And support your family.
And help my family, help my mom especially. And then when that was failing, I didn't know what else to do. Mm-hmm. Then one day I just said, let me go and give a try. What am I going to lose? Right. Let me see if it worked for others. Let me see what can be done.
Tell me about the first sign you saw when you went there.
Well, I saw testimonies in the life of people. I heard people speaking about what happened to them. My case was that I'm waiting for my exam and I don't know what's going to happen when I get it. I'm not expecting anything. Mm-hmm. And then I came and they pray, they advise, encourage you to believe something can happen. And one of the first things that happened was when I get my exam, and I was surprised at the result. Because from expecting nothing, I managed to pass everything. And the truth is that the only thing that I was thinking that I could pass at least was English.
Right.
And English was the one that I did the worst in. I barely passed it. That year, 3 became a pass.
Right.
And that was the only thing I got 3 for English.
Okay.
It was the only thing I thought I could at least manage. And the rest of them I got 1s and 2s.
So that was a sign for you?
That for me was a big sign.
Right.
And of course, I continued going, learning. And then the teaching would come, about forgiveness. And then my father was there. How am I going to deal with him? Sometimes I would go home and he would be on top of his voice and, the tension inside of the house. And I would learn, forgive. Mm-hmm. And hear about forgiveness. Then I decided to put it into practice.
Now, some people may think at home, my relative hurt me. They did this wicked thing to me. They neglected me. It's impossible for me to forgive my father or whoever it is. And you, in your situation, probably thought, my God, it's hard as well, but you had to do something.
Yeah, because one thing this person need to understand, when you don't forgive, you're not hurting the person. Even if the person hurts you bad, no matter how much bad the person, when you don't forgive, you have been hurt already, and then you keep hurting yourself. Because that year that I went to school living like that, I also hurt myself because I kept, those questions, those doubts, those things inside of me, and I contributed to that as well. And when I learned about forgiveness, what do I have to lose? I was hurt already. If I stay with that hurt, what's it going to do for me?
So sometimes the person thinks about what that person did to them rather than what is hurting them.
What keep on hurting them.
So you have to free yourself from that.
Then I had to do it. But of course, I don't know how he's going to react. Right. I don't know what he's going to do, how he's going to accept what I'm going to say.
So
how
what
am
did you say to him?
The truth is that one day, I remember I left church and I went there with his wife and I called them and we prayed together.
You just said a prayer?
And we prayed together, and then he even cried and, was really... I spoke to him. I don't remember exactly what I said, but we spoke. And then 2 weeks later, or less than a week later, I was back to the same thing again.
Right.
Shouting, making a lot of noise, and sometimes it was like, is this really going to work? But I had to decide and say, I'm going to do it.
You're going to continue?
I'm going to do it because I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want to continue living like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to follow in his footsteps. I didn't want to carry on with my life, just the way it is. What I was learning in the church was, I see that it was helping people. I want to put the word of God into practice.
So just there, Pastor Rema, what you just said, when you prayed, you did that. You didn't expect your father to cry. But when he did, it just proved he was hurting as well.
Exactly.
He was holding all this pain in. Probably he couldn't control himself by what he did. He felt hurt. I'm sure he wanted to do more as a father. So all of that came out during that prayer. Everything, he couldn't hold anything
to
back.
tell you the truth, I don't know much. Even now, I don't know much because he passed away maybe a few years after I get to know him. I managed to bring him to the church. He came, I remember one afternoon by himself because I would leave school in the afternoon and he went in the afternoon. I went with him on Sunday, he learned.
Right.
No, he got baptized, not in the church, but he even got baptized. And the things was different. He and my brother became different. Actually, my brother was living with him in the same house, which was impossible for him to stay at the back. And I don't know much. I never get really to speak to him much. And sometimes not even necessary, but I could see the way that he lived, the life that he had. No one is proud or no one is happy to live that kind of life. Mm-hmm. And you can see that he, for sure, like you said, he was hurting. Mm-hmm. And people need to understand, sometimes you see your parents, you see someone that is big, someone that is maybe older than you, and you might think the person is supposed to know better. Or the person did this to me because they want to hurt me. Or why did they do that to me? But the person themselves have their own issues inside. And if you allow that to hurt you and you keep that inside of you, then you just keep on hurting yourself. Today I'm here, I'm free. Imagine if I kept that and then he passed away, I would still have those things inside of me until today.
Yeah. It's what Pastor Bruno said. We have adults that are still children inside. Right, Pastor Bruno?
Yeah, it's still hurting. They're still carrying the pain. Many people think that forgiveness is a defeat. So if I forgive, I'm losing, I'm giving in, when it's not like this. The first one to forgive is the strongest. Mm-hmm. You know, the first one to forgive is provoking. The chain reaction, the change, the transformation starts at that moment, the healing.
That's what we saw with Raymar, right? Because when he decided to go to his father and say that prayer and talk, he was releasing himself from that burden, right?
For sure.
And your father then started to break down and cry. And we saw he was like a human. He wasn't this hard or tough man.
Like you know, we would like to think that the person doesn't care or the person doesn't consider. Sometimes there are people that they just don't know how to deal with things. They don't know how to deal with issues. Their life take a certain route and they just lose control. And we cannot keep ourselves victim of that. We cannot make ourselves suffer because of that.
Now, Pastor Rema, jumping to now, how is your life today? What are you doing now?
Well, today I'm helping other people like I was helped. That's the greatest thing. I'm able to help others.
Yes.
Today I'm happily married, 9 years now.
You are a pastor, you're a minister.
Yes.
You are teaching other people that it is possible to forgive.
It's possible and it's necessary and it's a must. Not only possible, but it's necessary, it's a must.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, I could even achieve my education. I left some years after to come and do what I'm doing now. But imagine, I could get my education, I could be doctor, whatever, I could be doing things. But imagine if I don't forgive, if I don't do that, I'm going to be all of this, carrying this kind of things inside of me. What kind of person, what kind of husband I'm going to be, what kind of parent I'm going to be, what am I going to be? Yeah. I'm going to just carry, and then later I'm going to pass it on to people, I'm going to pass it on to my children if I have, and that is what many people are doing.
Yes. Pastor Rema, I would like to thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. And by the way, you're going to be next week on the program again, right?
For sure.
So helping other people. So, viewer, it's important that you we are not just here, we're not paid to do this. We are living. We have found answers in our own lives. And we want you to have what we have experienced, what Pastor Rema has experienced. So if you are hurt, please stay with us. Because after the break, myself and Pastor Bruno will be praying for you. God, He forgives. It doesn't matter how tough things have been for you. It is possible to forgive with God's help. We'll see you right after this break. What an amazing story you see. Through his faith, he was able to bring his father to God, right? To the presence of God. And his father also changed. His family changed as a result of faith. Pastor Carl's amazing, right? Normally the parent would bring the child, but normally in this case, he brought his father and his family to the church.
Because
the presence of God.
This is how wonderful our God is. Yeah. He can use anyone. He can use a child. He can use a grown-up person. He can use an elderly. He can use, as long as he sees, that the person is willing to do that partnership with him. Mm-hmm. Because that's how our God, he works. And once again, Pastor Mike, we have seen the power of faith, to help a person to forgive, because he wouldn't be able to do that without the power of faith.
And he had to, the first step was learning to forgive his father for all those things that he did. Mm-hmm. And then God was able to start hearing and answering his prayer. Mm-hmm. And another important thing was Raymar's testimony, as you mentioned, right? His behavior afterwards. He couldn't retaliate anymore. He couldn't hold those feelings anymore. Now he had to show his father, you know what, I'm a changed person. Mm-hmm. And his father saw that. Yes. And that's how his heart, that hardened, tough heart, was made soft through his actions.
That's a very strong point, Pastor Michael, because many times we see this a lot in our place of worship. We see people, for example, they want to bring their family to Christ. Mm-hmm. They want to see how many, for example, ladies who come to us and I want to see my husband changing, parents who say, I want to see my children, changing, and vice versa as well. But then what God teaches us is that before we expect other people to change, we have to change first.
Exactly.
We have to allow God to work in us first.
Exactly.
And that's what happened to Raymond.
And that's the secret. If you want a family member to change, right? If you want your father to change, then you have to put it upon yourself to start changing first. All right? Amazing story. If you would like to contact us regarding this, the number's on the screen. You can give us a call and speak to someone. It's 0207 686 6300, or you send us an email at help@findinganswerstv. We're going to go for a break now, and when we come back, we're going to be answering your questions, and then we'll be praying for you as you always do at the end of the program. We'll see you right after this break.
Welcome back to your program, Finding Answers. And this is the time, this is the segment that we will be answering your questions. And we'll be more than happy, more than pleased to answer whatever questions that you send to us. Pastor Michael, what is the question for tonight?
Yes, let's have a look at this question for tonight. Patricia from London says, does the Bible mention anything about divorce? Am I doing the right thing by divorcing my husband due to an adulterous affair? This question about divorcing your husband or wife is something that divides Christians. And Jesus himself spoke about divorce. And each case is different. He said, if you are able to forgive your partner, then continue with him, or her. But then you're always going to have that idea, that thought in your mind, will they cheat again? If you are going to divorce your partner because of an adulterous affair, then of course, remember, at a wedding, at a marriage ceremony, both of you made a vow, not only between one another, but in the presence of God, that you would stay with one another. You'll be faithful to that person in sickness and in health, through richer for poorer, till death do you part. You made a vow to marry that person. So there are people, Pastor Carlos, who they think that I can hide an affair and then still have, both bites of the cherry. I can have my fun in the marriage and outside of the marriage. So I would say, depending on the situation, if you are able to forgive your husband, then go ahead. If he is sincere, if he has repented, he's really sincere and he's sorry for what he did, and you see that he's changed his ways, then you don't need to divorce. But if you see that he's not willing to change, if you see that it's crocodile tears, it's not real, and you will have to, time has to be taken in seeing if he is real in what he's saying or not, his actions have changed, okay? Then you can decide to remain with him. Is there anything you want to add, Pastor Carlos?
Yes, what I would say is that what we always say, Pastor Michael, that we have to use faith with intelligence, right? I agree with you. Each case is a different case, right? We are not here to say, no, you have to be with your husband regardless whatever that he's doing. We don't know exactly, because what I have to say to you is that you have to protect yourself, because what if, for example, he is having his affairs and you don't know his whereabouts, so this can be even harmful to your health. So God wants you to be happy. If that's the case, and if you decide you don't have the faith that your marriage is going to be restored, you don't have the faith, honestly speaking, there is nothing wrong. The person may say, Pastor, to be honest, I tried this several times, didn't work. Now I want to move on with my life, then it's up to you. God wants you to be happy. However, yes, I do agree with you with when it comes to the vow. We have to remember the vow that we've made on the altar before God.
Yeah. And Jesus even said, look, if they're going to continue, because of man or people's stiff-necked, they were stubborn, they were proud, then it's best to divorce. It's best for that unfaithful person to go their separate ways, and for the innocent party to go her separate way and to find someone else. The problem is that there are people who try to they want to stick together thinking it will work, when deep down they know that person will be unfaithful. They can never trust that person. And how can you have trust? How can you, have that trust in that relationship? You're always going to be checking on that person's phone. And you didn't get married to be checking your husband or your wife's phone, thinking, are they cheating on me again? That's not what marriage is about. Marriage is about trust, it's about faithfulness, it's about sharing your life together with each other till death. And that's what God wants to protect you from, okay? All those issues and problems. You stick with this person and you stay with that person for the rest of your life. So, Patricia, I hope that has answered your question. As we said, it's on a case-by-case basis. If you need to go for marriage counseling, we suggest that you do that, but you don't rush into anything based on your emotions. Make sure that the decision that you make is the right one, okay? Well, if you'd like to send us your question, we'll answer it here on this segment of Finding Answers. You can just send us an email at help@findinganswers.tv. We're going to right now go for that part, the last part of the program, which is the prayer. And remember, our testimony tonight was Pastor Raymar on forgiving his father. If you are finding it hard to forgive the ones who are closest to you, especially your father or anyone else, now it's time for prayer.
Prepare now for the moment of prayer. If you would like us to make a prayer concerning your family and loved ones, send your name and prayer request to help@findinganswers.tv.
My Lord and my God, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, I pray, my God, for all our viewers, but especially for this person who, like Pastor Raymar, has been hurt by that parent, that father, my God, the one who's mistreated them for many years, the one who's hurt them in some way. They've been an absentee father. They've been a neglectful father, a father who wasn't around. He was abusive, my God, who shouted, who said so many hurtful things. My Lord, maybe they just spent money, providing money, but what that child wanted was that love, the care, the attention, was time spent with that child, taking them to a football match, taking them to rehearsals, going to the school play. But yet, my God, that father, all he did was just think of himself. And now many years later, this family are paying the price. My God, you see the effects that problems have had on this father, on this parent. And they have grown up now, and they are an adult now, and they don't know even how to behave themselves because of maybe the abuse they suffered as a child. My God, you are such a forgiving, you are such a loving Father. And I pray, Lord, that you forgive not only this parent, not only this father, but the child, my God, who has held this grudge. The child, my God, who has shouted back, who has done bad things themselves, my God, in a desperate hope of changing things, making things better. Lord, help this son, help this daughter, help this father or mother, my God, to be united. Help all the hurtful thoughts, all the anguish, all the anger inside, the grudgeful thoughts. Remove them from this heart, the bitterness. My God, this person maybe who has nightmares, they can't sleep properly because of what's happened. Lord, help this person to receive peace. Help them, my God, give them the strength to approach one another, to speak up, as Pastor Raymar did when he learnt about faith, learning that his family could change. He believed, my God. He didn't see it as a problem anymore, but he did what he needed to do, and you were able to change his father's heart. So change, my God, this father's heart. Change this son, this daughter. Change, my God, and remove everything inside hurting them, like cancer. Heal these wounds, my God, and may your peace enter this household. May your peace enter this heart. Restore this family, my God, not to how it was before, but even better, because now your presence will be there. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, there you have it, all right? I believe that God has heard our prayer, and the next thing that you need to do is to approach your father, approach that family member, and do what Pastor Raymar did, okay? Start acting in ways that God will be able to touch the heart of that family member. And you're going to see progress. You're going to see a change, all right? Until the next time, have a wonderful night. We'll see you on the next Finding Answers. God bless you. Bye-bye.
This program is brought to you by UCKG.